Um, so yeah, you were asking me how I was doing, and I was saying like it's day to day. This is my first week back in school, and all good things are happening. Great things are happening in terms of like uh, um, learning experiences and development and um, forecasting what's going to happen in the next 3 months. And it's been helpful because for the most part, everything else in my life has been like, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 months. You know what I mean? And so I think it's been kind of cool within the last, what's today? Thursday? Yeah, within the last 3 days to, you know, learn where I'm going to be. I'm going to be working at Merritt College as part of my field placement to do some work with mental health and their student athletes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And my
Wow.
focus in my program is group therapy, and that's when it kind of clicked, when I was like, oh my God, I need to get you. I mean, I've been talking to you about getting on the podcast, but it finally clicked really once once things slowed down a bit, and I like had a chance to like focus and be like, oh yeah, Ashley does run some group work. You know what I mean? Like, she does run some group. All right, well, this is the time to get her on. So yeah, school, and I've got an independent study project where I'll be rewriting the curriculum for a social work class that is really focused on identifying white supremacy within social work and really critically analyzing the history of social work with that lens. You know what I mean? I think sometimes in our classes we can throw white supremacy out kind of superficially, and I'm like, well, that doesn't really serve anyone. You know what I mean? Like, unless we really want to go further and further back to understand kind of the influence of white supremacy within our systems and procedures and policies, then yeah, that requires a lot of work and challenging work, like for us all. Like, how do we all participate in it? How are we all affected by it? So yeah, I just saw that. And I don't want to just say me. Other students saw this within our program, and then I spoke to the powers that be, and then through that process found out that could be an independent study. So I'm in terms of learning, I'm overwhelmed with thoughts and ideas, and I'm overwhelmed with like energy to like go learn about this stuff and really be be a nerd about it. You know what I mean? Just like completely geek out and
Right.
and expand my knowledge. But that, you know what? That's enough about me, because I did not have you on the podcast for me to sit here and rant about my life. And
Well, you weren't ranting, you were expounding on some current exciting events, so that's good to know.
absolutely, it is. It's all good stuff, and good stuff in many different ways. But either way, let's get into you, Ashley. What is going on? How have you been? What's been up with you? This is an interesting.
Well,
This is an interesting time.
this is such an interesting time. Let me start off by saying hello, everyone who's watching or listening or whatever method of accessing this episode. I am Ashley Blanco, and I am a grateful woman. And I know that sounds really formal, but I'm just coming in with a spirit of gratitude and as a lover of creator and self and community, bringing that energy of love and wholeness, and acknowledging that this country, you know, was built to break us.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's nothing comfortable about that. But what offers me comfort in this time is knowing that our divinity and our humanity, as Dr. Wade Noble said, goes beyond enslavement.
Mm-hmm.
So something that's been really resonating with me just in the last 24 hours is an abolitionist teaching style or network. And I deeply appreciate the work that's being done. I think that a lot of us have been in search of, you know, what our purpose is, what our work is, who do we work with, how do we do this, how do we show up, you know, are we constantly detoxing and purifying so that we can work in harmony with one another, or are we isolating and blaming people for our lack of engagement? So as I shuffle through all that, I'm very grateful for the Abolitionist Network and the movement for Black Lives and all the emergent strategy, the work of Adrienne Marie Brown, so many people. There's a lot of organizations out there. But I recognize that I am being rooted in, see, I appreciate the abolitionist approach, but I recognize to stay in the zone of constantly needing to abolish and dismantle and disrupt can be counterproductive to our health and to our essence. So I'm looking back even further to systems of vitality and bliss and tapping into, you know, what are the ways of being before enslavement, and then allowing that way of, and there's so many ways of being, especially with African people, there's so much diversity, allowing that that variation and distinction to inform our way of being, rather than slavery and resistance informing our way of being.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I said this first off. Thank you for starting off with gratitude. I love. Normally, I do it, but you did it for me, so thank you. I I think it's like it's even more important right now to still hold on to gratitude, because it's really easy to get lost in everything, right? And gratitude can bring you back to some form of center, or closer to it, you know. But yeah, it's that's interesting that you mentioned the abolitionist teaching, because I just finished glancing over a book that was talking about that, and the first book that I picked up reading about kind of this I don't want to misspeak and say like reemergence of abolitionist practice, because I'm sure it never really went away. You know what I mean? Just I wasn't in that world, right? Or I wasn't exposed. I haven't been exposed to it as much. But yeah, that's it's hard to maintain. It's been difficult, and I would say like day to day. I don't know about you, but having those moments where you recognize you really need to hold on to like joy and bliss, and
Yes,
and like you still should be able to grieve and process however you need to, and in that process, hopefully, you know, you're able to find some joy, laugh, smile. But that's hard, because I mean, I struggle with that, you know. I think one thing that has helped is turning off my phone.
yes,
We're not only in a weird place because of, you know, COVID and police brutality. We're in a weird place of how we communicate with each other. So the way that we learn about COVID, the way we learn about police brutality, right? It's in like quick bits of information, right? You see a 15-second video clip followed by some text, maybe 50 characters, and that's going to inform you of the news. And then you take what you want from that short message or that short form of communication, and then you go from there, and then you're bombarded with that, right? And that's very new. That's extremely new, and you can get caught up. I mean, I don't know how many times that like I've scrolled through, and it's so weird to see. You were speaking about variations, the variations of the world. Like I was imagining if I was like an alien and I came to Earth and stumbled, and the only way I knew how to like make a judgment about Earth was through social media. I'm like, where? What? I don't understand.
Man.
Like, let's use the States right now. Let's just use America. There would be like 3 different worlds going on. Like you'd go through, you'd be like, well, these people love to work out and wear tight clothes and okay, well then there's violence and okay, people are getting shot. And then there's a bunch of people that are just are showing their teeth and it's just a picture of their face over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I would be confused. And I mean, I'm still confused. And that's why I said I like turned the phone off, because I'm like, this is weird. This is so weird. But yeah, anyhow, how have you been able to kind of cope and thrive in this time, especially you work with San Francisco Unified School District,
Mm-hmm.
and this has got to be an insane time.
It is
for kids.
Yeah.
Right? I always have, and always will care about kids and their situation. And I can't imagine. I have no idea what it's like to be a kid right now, and just your whole social environment has been put on pause, which is such a huge and integral part of your development. Right? We know without, like when you're a kid, like your friends are everything in the world to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to school. Oh, I'm going to see so-and-so. That makes your day, right? You know what I mean? So what's this been like for you, and being exposed to the communities really affected by it?
Yeah. Well, I do a few things. One of them is accepting that this is not an exciting time as much as we want it to be. It's we just have to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a lot of opportunities as well, and being able to embrace that I don't need to have a certain amount of products or popularity or whatever. I don't have to have something to show for this time.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of pressure, especially on our age group, to produce something that gives this quarantine a sense of validity, because we weren't where we wanted to be before this, or we were where we wanted to be and something was paused.
Mm.
So acceptance for me is really key. And how I do that, I love to be in the presence of God. And people like, oh, here we go. Yes, here we go. I love to be in the presence of God. And the reason why I have to say that is because I grew up in, my family, we couldn't go outside and play all the time. We didn't have the social connections, and, we didn't have COVID back in the 90s, but given my parents' ability to engage with one another, because I did grow up in domestic violence and community violence, and, my grandparents were not available, we experienced some similar components, even though there wasn't COVID. So the isolation piece, social interaction piece, fear, uncertainty, instability. I'm very acquainted with those. And being able to remember that and make sense of that so that I can connect with people in a way that doesn't say, oh yeah, I know where you are, because I don't. But I can relate in a sense, like, you know what, I know how it is to be in an uncertain time or an unstable time, and not try to push people into where I think they should be, or push people into, fast forwarding into reaching their goals, when maybe it's just a time to pause, and allowing the sacredness of this moment to inform our next move, rather than the insanity of this moment or the instability of this moment. And another thing I do is I make sure I'm trying to be very good with my word. The book for agreement says be impeccable with your word. And I can't be perfect with my word because I'm always making errors. But I try to really keep my word and do what I said I was going to do.
Yep.
And that frees me up a lot, especially as I learn, like, setting some new boundaries and, trying to, really respect myself so that I'm not looking for other people to do what I need to be doing for myself, like respect my time, blah, blah, my space. No, if I do that, I don't need someone else. Oh, please,
Yeah.
So allowing myself to set those boundaries and be as impeccable as possible with my word, at least be intentional.
Sure.
Then I can let go of some stress. I don't have to remember who I lied to, or keep up with this story I'm telling people, and it really is a time of simplicity, and in my life, and it's a time of surrender, simplicity. There's been some silence, because I feel like, I'm, with the Rise and Thrive, which is my LLC for supporting women and men in shifting from low vibrational living to GLOW vibrational living. So GLOW is an acronym for growing in love, opportunity, and wonder. And say it again.
Say GLOW one more time.
GLOW is an acronym for growing in love, opportunity, and wonder. And it is my offering towards the anti-oppression work, but instead of focusing on anti-oppression, anti-blackness, anti-racism, anti-white supremacy, I say, what are you for?
Sure. There we go. Now we're talking.
So then it's like, okay, well, I am for systems of vitality and bliss.
Yeah.
And this system here, from 1492 to 1776 to 2020, doesn't teach me as a Black woman what that looks like. So I have to go back. And I give thanks for the sacred texts, the ancient texts, elders, the ancestors, being able to, surround in this moment and inform, like, okay, this is what it looks like. Just a little here and there, because if we continue to center whiteness in such a way that we keep examining it and keep, when you want to dissect it and interrogate, you're dissecting and interrogating a system that is not interested in hearing your voice.
Sure.
Now, some parts of it may say, well, we want to hear from you. Okay. But what I say is, let's build an alternative that's compelling to those who are truly willing.
Yep.
And then we'll build. And the rest of it, I'm not even going to worry about that, I think that when we think about this time, we have to be careful not to model after our oppressors, even in the sense of, our interactions with one another as Black people.
Sure. So you bring up a couple great points, and the first one is recognizing how we can go down the road of anti, and as much as it is important to explore and have an understanding of what that means, on the flip side, well, where do we go from here, and what are we?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wanted to go back when you said the W stands for wonder. I really
Yes.
I love wonder. Uh, you know, I can't say enough about how much it is difficult for me to be around people who are not curious about something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's become it's become easier to define. At some point I was like, I don't know what it is about people that's throwing me off, and the more that I kind of sat with it, was silent, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
listen to some of the thoughts and kind of put some pieces together. It was that curiosity, right? And I think that's probably connected to why I
Yeah.
like kids, right? I love kids because they're curious.
Yeah.
They want to know every damn thing, you know? And I love that, right? It's that energy. You're like, oh, I'm going somewhere, right? I'm
Yes.
and I have aspirations, and wherever that, I don't know where they're going to take me, but whatever. I'm head in the cloud, wherever. So I really do like that, the wonder portion, and that's something I see that we're I don't want to generalize.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to generalize, but I have a feeling that we're losing part of that curiosity. It's not encouraged, and I don't know. I don't know if it's in. I mean, This is a different conversation. Actually, this is going a different route, but sometimes I don't know if that's encouraged to students in school.
It's so interesting that you say that, because the reason why glowing is so important for me, and again, growing in love, opportunity, and wonder, is because when people, and I want to look at the collective, because it's, when you look at the individual is a function of a collective experience.
Sure, absolutely.
So as a collective, when you have people who've been demonized, brutalized, everythingized, okay, and there's a constant onslaught and devastation of the people, they're under stress, they're in perpetual states of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
they begin to, their spirits begin to diminish.
Mm-hmm.
Their capacity to think bigger and ask questions and just wonder, that is diminished.
Yeah.
So when we think about today's children and how, a lot, oh my goodness, it's not even their fault, they're trying to figure this out, and the thing is, with knowledge, it's very interesting. When you talk about, I think we're encouraged to wonder. We're not. And I think that where we fall into the trap of the oppressor is that we have to know so much in order to keep ourselves safe, because we're not protected.
Sure.
But we err on the side of having to know so much that we cannot trust, we cannot relax.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of faith. And when I think about being in the presence of God, I'm encouraged, I'm strengthened, I can cry, I can, collapse and be lifted up again. And that is a wonder.
Sure.
There, you can't, and that's not unique to me, that's for anybody who enters into the presence. So if I can go into the presence of God and have God, why every time I turn around, I'm getting a text message, pray for me, my cousin's son was shot. I mean, just today I got that text message and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. And I was irritated, but I can't be irritated with the person who sent it, because she wants me to pray, and so then I turned on my music, turned on Common song, morning. Yeah, Common the rapper.
Yeah, you're gonna. Oh man, you're gonna make me go back, and I haven't listened to Common in so long.
I guess his last album, Morning Love, is a track on the album. I listened to that, and it just began to ground me again, and that's a wonder. To listen to the words, to listen to the rhythms, the sounds, the vibrations, and to know that all of that has been blended to bring me to a place of oneness within myself. That's a wonder. You
Oh,
know, I
yes.
mean, so are we encouraged to be curious? Not when we are so concerned for our safety to where we have to know everything all the time.
Yeah. I would say that it's not really specifically if we're talking about the Black community, that, again, generalizing, that it's harder to be in that free state when you're under the microscope, or you're over the microscope trying to examine every single thing,
Mm-hmm.
concerned about what the next step is and what that would do, how that affects you, you know what I mean, just being like overly aware, you know what I mean, where you're not actually being present. You're so aware of everything else going on, you don't know what's going on in here. uh,
Right.
and then in general, I mean, I've just seen that. Yeah, there's just something interesting how we're becoming more and more of a tribal, I mean, not that we weren't tribal people before, tribal human beings, but yeah, I just see it in this way where, oh man, what's the easy way to, oh God, Austin, my friend and business partner, right? For whatever reason, Austin is from the middle of Missouri, right? I grew up here in San Francisco. Any for the most part, anytime we're going somewhere, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go. He'll pull he'll pull his phone out and he'll look up the directions, and I'm like, Austin, I know where we're going. He's like, wait, but the phone is like, Austin, we've done this at least 10 times. I know the direction. And that's specific to him, not necessarily being from here, but the idea of, oh, we'll have a phone to tell me where to go. I have an alarm that tells me when to eat. I have, um, and then that could be articulated as a schedule. But there are these things where there's a lot of, there's so many tools that could keep you from being creative. And I don't
Right.
want to use those two as like, oh, you're not being creative if you're using an alarm, because I think alarms are great. And I think following some direction is good. Uh, but that might be able to free you up to do some creative stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, it's time for me to be creative and put everything away. Um, but yeah, I don't know if we're, it's kind of baffling to see kind of where we're moving forward. I mean, I know SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company, that sending space shuttles that can launch and land, right? How is that? How, not to say that like he's the leader of the free world, but I'm fascinated by his curiosity. What was he like as a kid, right? Was someone telling him, no, that's not what you should do? Like, at some point, someone was like, keep going. You know what
Right.
I mean? Keep going. Open yourself up, right? And on the other end of the spectrum, yeah, we're still telling kids, no, go to school. Just go to school. Listen. Okay, regurgitate the information and then just get through, right? Don't question what you're learning. Don't question anything. Just kind of go through it. I think both of us can agree, depending on the type of institution, the type of the students who are being taught in that institution, that's the education that is given to them, kind of yeah, intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I can remember it early on in my educational journey, going to a private, predominantly white school. I could have easily fell behind in that place. Even though I know I was capable of doing it, I just wasn't really, it was like, new school, trying to figure out kind of who I am. And I distinctly remember overhearing my dad talking to the teacher. She was a white teacher. And he was so serious about like, no, you keep pushing him. Like you keep like there, do not, don't take it, not don't take it easy on him. I can't, okay. I was in like third grade, so I can't really, I'm paraphrasing here,
Mm-hmm.
but it was essentially like, don't think because he's a black kid that he can't like achieve the same way these other kids do. Like, don't do that. You know what I mean? And I remember, curiosity for sure was encouraged. I mean, you had kids building computers at that school, you know what I mean? And I knew what my friends that went to other schools, that opportunity wasn't there. And I don't know if that same message was encouraged in the classroom or at home, right? So, yeah, I just think curiosity is something. I'm seeing that in my master's program now, which is why
Mm-hmm.
to focus and write curriculum, because I want to eventually teach, and I would be failing students if I did not encourage and demand that they use that skill, right? Like harness it and develop it and use that to solve some of the problems that we see in the world, because there's quite a bit. You pick and choose. You can blindfold yourself and point, and you'll find a problem. Um, yeah, I want to go back to the positives. So we've established that, and all the antis. What do you think the harm? Like, what do you think the harm is when we dive into these antis? Like, we get stuck.
That is such a, no one has ever asked me that question. And not that I've been asked all the questions in the world either.
Well,
But
I'm sure that's funny, Ashley.
yeah, but I like that question. What's the harm? Because then it leads to me to talk about the benefits. The harm in being so anti.
Oh,
The song comes to mind. You may have heard it. SOBRBE.
not
I'm
from.
so anti. I'm not gonna. Whoever is listening, they're probably like, "Oh yeah, I know that song."
I'm not
The,
familiar.
these young guys from Vallejo talking about how anti they are. And the lyrics are horrible, but the beat is really cool
Okay.
as usual. And we begin to sound just so anti.
Mm,
We are in opposition to everything. We have to overanalyze and investigate, interrogate, dissect, cross-examine. It just becomes so intellectual,
mm,
so cognitive. And the danger is when I think about Dr. Naeem Akbar in his book, The Community of Self, which is definitely, it informs at a deep level the work I do. He talks about these community members within us. And, I hope I have all 6 of them, but it's ego, memory, logic, pleasures, motive, and conscience.
okay.
And if each of these members are in harmony with one another, it's because the will has taken these members and organized them. But if one member is more puffed up than the others, or 2 are, against the other 4, it creates disintegration within the individual. And it could lead to an anti-personality. Now, when I talk about anti-personality, I'm not talking about borderline or narcissistic or whatever in particular. But what I'm saying is there's a certain level of instability that's created because the will is not able to harness these components, these community members within the self.
Sure.
And when you're disorganized within yourself, you are going to attract disorganization. You're going to magnify disorganization in your environment because you're seeing what's inside of you. So
Sure.
the harm of being anti, there's a few of them. One is that you intellectualize everything and you become really little value to very few people, because
Sure.
you don't have to intellectualize everything. The second thing is you're creating more room for your limitations,
Mm.
and you begin to argue for your limitations, when in actuality you're you're dismissing yourself from opportunities to be whole and operate in wholeness.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so that is my longer short answer
Sure.
to what is the harm. Because like one of those members in the community, if pleasure or senses and memory are puffed up amongst the community members, you know, and the others are, you know, more diminished or whatever the case may be, you'll be driven by what you can see and what you can hear, and you need more information to confirm this or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, if memory is too puffed up, you begin to live in the past and you're not able to be present or plan for the future. You know, so it really, to be anti is to take us off of a path of harmony and into something else, you know, that again is not beneficial to us collectively.
Yeah. You're spot on. I mean, it does not help us solve any issues when you know, it makes us less receptive um, to, you know, to like solving some of these problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, I think I've looked back in history, and I've seen, you know, there are numerous accounts where you actually, you know, you have people from different walks of life, different faiths, different ideologies that are still able to sit down with each other and talk, and that's where I don't see that's one of the problems I see right now, as when we talk about like focusing on the anti. You know, I'm like, okay, great, we again have some basic understanding of these isms and antis and everything else, but we can't linger on that, right? It's,
Yeah.
got to do some work to create solutions and building bridges, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
one of the, I mean, I've probably shared this story far too many times, but when I first moved to Atlanta, I think it was like 2009 or 2010. I'll never forget a guy who I moved in with, a really great friend of mine. Like, hey, do you want to go out? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. He's like, do you want to go to a white party or a black party? And I was like, let's, so like an all white party or an all black party, as in like a tire. And I was only there for the weekend. I was like, oh, I didn't bring any, you know, all white clothes or all black clothes. And he was like, no, fool. I'm talking about, do you want to go? And I was like, wait, what? Oh, I I don't know. You know, I was just coming from California, and not I don't know honestly, I didn't know the last time I heard that. Like it was like, well, I'll go anywhere for the most part. Like as long as it's a good time and I don't feel like I'm in danger, then I don't see why I can't go anywhere. But again, going back to this one or the other, is it black or is it white, right? And that's one of the black and white is about as American as it gets, right? It's either you're one or the other, and there's nothing in between. um and again, it's just pitting ourselves against each other when we create um these binaries, one or the other. You versus us versus them. um we're different, you know what I mean? It's like, yes, we have differences, but we're trying to get past all this black, white, Chinese, Japanese, whatever. Like, yes, we appreciate our differences, but at the end of the day, we're human beings. Like, come on. I mean, I know
I,
that sounds pretty, I know it sounds like kind of la la, but I'm like, that's what we're, you know, that's what I think we're trying to get to. I mean,
I
that's,
think, I'm sorry, I think that's what I'm trying to get to as well. It's how we get there. That's the big question. And for me, when I think about, well, what am I for? I have to go back to my values and know what my values are, so that even when I'm indifferent,
Sure.
or I'm in differences with somebody else, I can still connect with them on a level of value. I value treating people with dignity, respect, and sacredness. So whether I don't like what you said or I don't like how you look, I'm still going to treat you in alignment with my values.
Exactly.
And even if to recognize, to be honest with myself, I am in error about certain things, or I don't know, or whatever the case may be. I can extend that graciousness and that mercy to someone else, because I know what I need when I need it. So being able to, like you talk about building across those bridges, a key for me when we talk about all the different types of groups of people, I never want to live in a post-racial society in America where we deny color and everybody's okay, and because white people have determined that's what it is.
Sure.
I want to live in a world where you are safe to be who you are, and you have the tools to operate across differences. And the tools to operate across those differences come from who you are at your essence, and how you came into the earth, whether it's a Black man or a white or Asian or trans or however you come into the earth.
Sure.
You know that is a tool for you to construct across differences. But if you let that be the reason why you can't, then you are the inhibitor. It's and I said, if I ever get on a TED talk, I would talk about how unresolved pain and rejection are the parents of inequity.
Say it one more time.
Unresolved pain and rejection are the parents of inequity. So don't come to me talking about supremacies, deficiencies. If you have any type of rejection issues or unresolved pain, there has been some inequity deposited into your experience, and you have to work through that so you can be a carrier of justice, balance, harmony, reciprocity, mutuality, and interdependence. And what I'm learning is, the further we go back, especially for me, I'm reading a book called Spirituality Before Religions, which is amazing, by Professor Kaba. Hiawatha Kamene. I can't pronounce his name correctly. I got to hear him say it. But it's so amazing because as Black people, we are not lacking anything. But we live in a world where we're constantly being stolen from and broken down, and we buy into these narratives because sometimes we don't even know we are consuming it. It's just part of our everyday experience. But again, if we can go back to that world where Black is synonymous to beautiful, intelligent, generous, kind, resourceful, etc., then we can get more resources for who we are and how we are.
So with Rise and Thrive, is it specifically for folks of color, Black folks? I think you did say it was men and women.
Yes. Okay. So of course I'm a woman, and men are like, oh, this must be for women. They're like, you guys are welcome. There's a part for you guys. My commitment is to Black people. Okay. I'm Black on both sides, Honduran, American Black,
Aren't we all? I mean,
right.
We all came from the same place.
And so my commitment is to Black people. I'm always going to, in my, Latinx, that's part of my background as well. Asian, Samoan, I'm very inclusive. But when I have a room that's open for healing and innovation, my call is for Black people to enter the room, because I want to be a part of our collective healing. And Rise and Thrive, for some, I mean, people, I'm still figuring out what it is.
Yeah.
But for me, as I think about, what's the ideology, the philosophies, it's African centered, it's Christ centered, it's faith driven, it's collaborative, it's all these things. It's something that, may have existed in another time in a different form, but it's so unique that sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't have a brief way to describe it, but it is for Black people, and others are welcome. So I've had other people of color come into the room, and the reports that they feel when they come in, they feel embraced,
Yeah.
um, and that's, Africa is the root of civilization, so everybody comes from us. There's no reason why we can't, be together. But there are spaces where I've facilitated, it's only been Black women, and I mean, I was like, well, this was supposed to be, because they're the ones responding to it, So if I ever have an event and mostly white people respond to it, I'm gonna have a few questions about that. But I'll take it,
Yeah, I was gonna say, take that as, I mean, I think you take that as a compliment, right? And take that
Mm-hmm.
as an opportunity, right? I mean, that would say a lot. And
Yeah.
I mean, not only say a lot about the group, but I would go as far as say it is really about you, as I explore groups that I'll be running, the more that I am, the more that I have, the more buy-in I have to the idea that the relationship that you have with people in the group is imperative, right? That's what's making that room vibrate. You know what I mean? That's what's allowing those people to heal or open up. And um, if you can get and if the majority white folks start hitting you up, man, then you're doing something. You're doing something really great. You're doing something right.
And I just want to back you up just a little bit, Joseph, because I never want white people coming into the room to legitimize my work.
No, no,
I don't want to, just so people are not, I don't want them to interpret what you say as, yeah, when white people are in there, then she's doing the work. No. That means that there's a space for them to do some deep examination,
sure,
because some people haven't stepped into Rise and Thrive environments because we go deep. We look at ourselves.
sure.
We can't just blame the system or blame our families or our friends. We have to look at what was our role in the situation, how are we taking responsibility, and as we choose healing, how do we match that with everyday innovation, and what is that for you? So there's a lot of inner personal skill building, and there's a lot of practice for courage and vulnerability to build those skills that are so key to enhancing our interactions and our relationships with one another.
Sounds like you're talking about accountability in there, Ashley. My God, accountability. God, people are just.
Well,
And we all need it. We all play a role. I mean, yeah. I think that's important. And by no means did I mean that your value and the work that you do would be legitimized by white people. I think I was more focused on, I think it was hope, like it was very hopeful.
thank you.
If you were ever able to get your women of color, men of color, folks of color, whoever they may be, and if there's any opportunity, like I was saying before, to get folks that are different from each other, right? Specifically, if we're talking about, skin tones and what that means. And I think that's where real growth happens, like not taking anything away from the, excuse me, the work that you would do with primarily folks of color and Black folks. But yeah, I mean, I love when I see different folks at the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It goes back to like yes, there should be times where folks have their spaces and their events where they, they want to be around folks like them. Um, but that's not that's not how the world works. Everybody is not just, that's actually where if we just stay within our silo, yeah, I don't know if we're able to really express our humanity.
Mm.
Part of being human is like talking about wondering and curiosity. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
say it, we are an interesting species, right? We look different where no matter where you go, we mix up and we produce these different beings, and you're like, wait, what? Like, I don't know where else that happens. And I've never seen that visibly within like another species. Like, you don't see, I mean, maybe there's a couple, but you don't hear like, yeah, a dog and a cat had a baby, and then they
Right.
are like, oh, you know what I mean? Like a snake and a spider. Like, no, no, no.
Right.
It's like humans would look different, but I'll go off on a tangent. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Um, so you did say that it is definitely a faith-based group, and I wanted to ask you about the importance of exploring your existential self or existential ideas, because I think it is really important to recognize that, and that's a part of our development, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
to think about what is bigger, what's bigger, what's what else is going on, right?
Right.
So yeah, how did why is it that you think that's important for people to embark on?
You're asking such great questions. So I was talking to my mom today, and I said to her, I wish that I could, when I see these young men and women, and I'm 33, so I'm not like, the elder or something. But when,
Still cooking, Ashley. Don't you worry.
wait, what'd you say?
I said you're 21 and you're just running groups,
But
helping people thrive.
thank you, Joseph. Thank you. When I see these young men and women, younger than me, at these marches and protests, and they are incensed, they're enraged, they're pounding their chests, they're losing their voice, they're angry, they're crying.
Mm-hmm.
There is a place for emotion, because emotion is how we express our inner experience.
Mm.
But what I want to do after that is I want to ask them, don't you know that your spirit knows there's more than this? And the reason, my mentor said this, Mama Nyambi Jaha Echols, she said, if we didn't know there was more than this, we wouldn't be frustrated.
Sure.
But because we know, that's why, like the body, is a temple, but can also feel like a grave. How does that happen?
Wow.
Because of how we think about ourselves, how we move through our experiences. And having faith, having a spiritual practice that radiates your love for God, self, others. You are a custodian of the land. You have a good relationship with the land. Having that faith is key to being in oneness. Lauryn Hill said, how can you win when you ain't right within? So many of us are trying to be right when we are dead wrong. Why are we dead wrong? Because we haven't begun to be honest with ourselves about what we want, what we need, how we're hurting. And then we go into these protests, we go into these workplaces, we go into, a relationship, wanting someone to validate us in the ways that our unresolved pain, our rejection, our enraged emotions have robbed us.
Mm-hmm. I'm currently running groups for an organization, and the two groups are coping with isolation while working from home, and the other one is being a person of color at work. And when we, myself and the other facilitator, when we were pitching this idea, we were very clear about, you know, if you all are talking about equity and inclusion and diversity, we really want to start with people's mental health, because I'm not sure what kind of work you're going to do if people aren't feeling good or are in a place to be receptive to like learning, right? You talk about perpetual stress. I mean, if this isn't a time right now where every day is a challenge, and then you're being asked to perform and be productive at work, on top of, you know, like we said before, your feed, boom, 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 shooting, boom, shooting, riot, uh, death, COVID, shutdown, isolation,
Elections.
election. I don't have a job. Wait, we're not doing stimulus anymore. Like, where am I going to get my money from? Where my kids still have to go to school.
The fires.
If you have, I mean, oh man, we got a response back from one of the participants saying that they weren't going to participate in the coping with isolation from working from home, because she'd been working from home for 2 years and essentially was like, I'm very comfortable in doing that and don't think I need to participate because I don't feel isolated. Just, again, paraphrasing. And immediately I talked to my facilitator, and I was like, that's the person who I worry about. Because 2 years ago, we were not in the same place we were now. And yes, that you were working from home 2 years ago. So have you not recognized what's going on in the world? Do you think that everything is normal? Right. So it was just fascinating to hear her talk about that. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, I would be concerned about that person. Not to say like, oh, something bad's gonna happen. I don't want that from that person. But when I read that, I was like, oh, okay. That is your right. You do not have to participate. This is a service that the company has provided for their employees. But yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up when you talk about you know, if you're not right inside, how are you gonna approach someone else? I think, yeah, I took Tai Chi like a year ago. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done because it really made me slow down. And the instructor had been teaching for well over 30 years, and he said it's Tai Chi is one of the few things that you can get better at as an old person than you would as a young person. I was like, damn, okay, dropping a little knowledge bombs on me. All right, yep, okay. And I would watch 60, 70-year-old folks, flowing, like just moving with ease. And I'm sitting here, still tense. And he's like, relax. You have to relax. I'm like, okay, I can relax. I can do it. And then, kind of going through that internal battle of like, relax. Okay, move. Wait, relax. Wait, hold on. You're not relaxed enough. You know what I mean? But he also, I came to him and I explained why I sought out Tai Chi. And I asked him, I was like, well, how do you apply, where do you apply this to life? And he was just saying, he's like, you ever been at a job where you have, a manager who's just on top of you and they just won't look like they're just on top of you. They're constantly just being aggressive. And he's like, well, if you come to that person aggressive as well, then you have two aggressive people and nothing gets accomplished. He's like, if you come to them calm, the chances of them being calm are greater. It's like, that's how you get along with people. And I said, okay, Bill, I hear everything that you are saying. And it is about coming to people. If we talk about relationships, recently was dating a girl, and we had one of those conversations where she had mentioned that there was some trauma in her history, and that she knew it was affecting her. Right. And I was like, oh, that's great. I mean, that's wonderful that you're acknowledging that. Right. I'm a transparent person. Like, I talk about how deep do you want to go? Right. We don't have to know each other that well. That's just me. Right. And that's one of the reasons why, I started going to therapy, over 2 years ago, because I recognized there's some things that I wanted to explore about myself. And I recognized that if I didn't address those, I don't know how happy and successful I would be. And I, not only happy, healthy. I don't know how healthy I would be. And it got to the point where I told her, I was like, you know what? It wasn't really working out, but I told her, I was like, this is coming to you as like a friend, and as like a person who's had a really great experience. Not saying that you need it, but I really think you should talk to somebody. I think you should join. I mean, and maybe a group. Join. You need to have a community, whether that's a therapist or Rise and Thrive. But yeah, you can't let that stuff. Like, I could see it. I could see it. I was like, oh, it's hindering you from like opening up. It's hindering you from like feeling good. You know what I mean? So when you talked about, coming whole, coming right. Yeah, we've got to do it. Now it's hard work.
This is the thing, Joseph. It's okay to be wrong.
I love being wrong. I love being wrong.
The pain of being wrong is when it's embarrassing and the person wants to, but aside from that, if we could just remove all the embarrassment, all the shame, there is such a blessing in being wrong, because in one of my, I read so many books, so they're all my mentors and elders. And Brother Tete of Ghana, a mystic, says, and a mistake is an error unrealized.
Sure.
So when now I'm aware, there you go. That's a blessing. And when I think about when the best ways I've been loved, or the best times I've been loved, is when I was wrong.
Sure. Absolutely.
And because of that, I say, thank you, God, thank you, that I can know what life is when I felt like, oh, this is it. There's nothing left,
But why is it so hard? Why do you think it's so hard for us? I mean, why do you think it's so hard for us to get to that point where we can almost find humor in being wrong? I mean, I find it funny. When I'm wrong, I kind of chuckle like, yeah, you are so wrong.
For me, it's liberating to be able to, and what is it? It's pride. It's pride. It's pride. It's pride. The thing with personal injury or interpersonal injury is that unresolved pain becomes a pride issue. Insecurity becomes a pride issue. We want to shelter the very things that are putting a dagger in us. Oh, don't open that door. I took so long to hide that. Why are you uncovering it? And I know that because I've done that. Oh my gosh, you can see it. I thought I had it covered. Oh my God. So I've done a lot of, I've been in therapy for the last 2 years as well, because I had, some things I need to work through. Absolutely. And it actually culminated into, some things that we're like, okay, Ashley, you really need to go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm happy. And like you said, healthier. I'm
Yeah.
healthier. You know, I have a healthier attitude when I make mistakes. And don't get me wrong, I'm a very sensitive person, highly sensitive. So sometimes if I make an error, depending on what day it is, I'll be like, oh, you know, asking my closest people, is this okay to, you know, I'm trying to evaluate it into its right position. It's like, no, I don't know. It's just a pride issue. And
Yeah.
people have to be, you know, willing to humble themselves and say, I don't need pride to live my best life. It's actually helping me to live my worst life.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like, I mean, I agree that it is pride. And if maybe if we take it like, I actually don't want to say further, but
Yeah.
another way is when we're right, people like us more. And when we're
Oh, yeah.
the idea is that people will like us less, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
because and I would tie this right back to curiosity or lack thereof that is encouraged in school. In school, we are not in historically, and I think we're working on it. We're working on making sure students embrace failure, right, and understand that that is a part of the success equation. But that's what it goes back to when I think about it. Like, oh my God, being in a room full of people, like, so, what's the answer? And you raise your hand. And that is a major moment that you can either feel like $1,000,000 or street trash. Like, I got it wrong. And everybody heard it. Oh God.
It is okay. You know, what you're reminding me of, Joseph, is, and I'm always referring to a book I read because reading is fundamental, as we heard growing up.
Might be a book snob, Ashley. I was reading a book written by an esteemed monk.
Well, these books I read are pretty awesome.
That's what.
And one of them, well, so there's actually two that come to mind. One is um, Love Without Conditions, Reflections of the Christ Mind by Paul Ferrini.
Okay.
And he talks about the fear of punishment
Mm-hmm.
and the fear of being unlovable.
Oh yeah.
And so we tie, you know, making a mistake to being unlovable.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
there's that fear. And then another book I love is Zaretta Hammond, author of Culturally Responsive Teaching the Brain. Now, Joseph, I feel like I am a book snob. But anyway.
I believe within 45 minutes we have recognized we're like, she.
Oh my goodness.
But it's okay.
Okay.
There are other things in the world where you could be a snob about, and I'd be highly disappointed. But a book's
Okay.
actually, you're
I,
not a snob. You're just well read.
you know, I like to read different people. I like all these voices. They're just like really cool,
Yeah.
or they're helpful. But Zaretta Hammond talks about creating intellectually safe environments, and she focuses on examine your errors.
Yeah.
Don't, you know, just uncover them. It's okay to make a mistake. What'd you learn?
Yeah.
And she actually encourages like teachers to tell their students, let's talk about the mistakes you made in a way that is no shame, no blame, but actually like that curiosity piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love it. So I'm like, we gotta be willing to be wrong, as Iyanla Vanzant, who I also love, says, willing to be wrong.
Yeah.
And you know, not take ourselves too seriously, which every wise person has said, and just, you know, be like, oh, I was wrong. Ooh, man, I was wrong.
I was so wrong. Man, blew it. Complete.
Yeah.
Yeah. What when you walk out of? I'm gonna go back a little bit. You said you went to therapy you've been in therapy for a couple of years, and we talked about being healthy, and it could vary, but generally, when you leave therapy, how do you feel?
I feel, well, I'm having it at home now, which is still a blessing. I like being able to walk out of the office and walk down the street. The sun is setting. The colors, I mean, it's just beautiful. And I'm walking, and I just feel so grateful
Yeah.
that I don't have to stay where I am. that there's always more. And that's, I go back to being in the presence of God. There's always more. I remember, and I should have been in therapy back then too, in college, I remember telling a friend that I didn't want to be too happy,
Yep.
because that was when I became closest to becoming sad.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was 21, and that's a pretty profound statement from 21-year-old myself, at least. But now, I know where that comes from. There was a phase in my life where everything was just so, everything is temporary, but things were so hard for my family, and it really destabilized us as a unit. And it happened over years, but when it came to a collapse, um, I mean, that's where those ideas began to formulate. You can't get too happy because then you'll be sad. Oh, don't enjoy it too long. It's not going to last. And then if I carry that into adulthood, well, how am I going to treat you? Well, someone. No, that's you. Now, sometimes it is the other person, but most of the times, as one person said, if you have an issue, 9 out of 10 times, it's you.
Yeah, we bring so much stuff into the room.
And that's okay.
That's fine. That's why you go to therapy. Works.
Yes. Get some good friends.
Gotta have a good circle. I was gonna say, like, that's one of the things I miss about going to therapy in like the office, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd walk out and I would feel light. I mean, light, like, wow. And I'm, I have been extremely fortunate, and I recognize that there are people who are going through much more complex life experiences and so much different types of trauma, right? I don't compare myself to people, but I do recognize, like, hey, I don't have it. I don't have it. I don't have it that bad. You can take it however you can take that however you want it. But I still feel super light. It's like, whoo,
yeah,
yes, okay. I feel freedom. I feel freedom when I get out. I mean, not necessarily during. Sometimes there'll be moments where I feel like, oh yeah, that's right. But it's more so when I come out, just a little bit of clarity, freedom to express who I am, right? And I think that's because you recognize, or I recognize within the session that I'm being totally honest about how I'm feeling, right? And there aren't that many times where you get to do that, specifically in the therapeutic session, right? And I just wanted to bring that up because I'm always curious how people feel, and everyone's experiences are different, right? Like, there damn sure could be more emotional times during therapy. There could be happy times. There's more, kind of routine. Like, what's going on? Like, not too much, just hanging out. But talk about that circle. So examine your circle briefly. And what is it that's so important in the people that you surround yourself with?
This is therapy for me. Thank you, Joseph. So it's so interesting you say that. And God is so, they're going to say, this girl, all she talks about is books and God. Okay, I do live a wonderful, a blessed life. Praise God. But what makes the friendships enriching, and I had to look for this because I was like, okay, I'm seeing a little imbalance in some of my friendships.
Oh.
What can I do? What can I do? And sometimes it's not something for us to do.
Yeah.
It's something that we just need to like leave for that person to do and distance ourselves. But when I look at my friends, they don't ask me for anything more than just to be who I am. And we enjoy one another. One of my friends, I just love her. She's in New Jersey. And, we take the time to get to know each other as people. We don't claim to know one another so much to where we start capping on one another, disrespecting one another. Like, we're always allowing ourselves to unfold and share ideas and, explore new places. And then we bring these things back to when they're like, oh, you should try this meal, or, watch this episode, or let's do this hike, or come over and and it's just, they add so much abundance.
Yeah.
They make me recognize how blessed I am just to have people gravitate towards me. And they say, well, it's because of who you are too. And I'm like, I know, but I don't know. I'm so happy to have people like them in my life. They're wonderful.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're honest with me too. They tell me when I'm wrong.
Have you had to kind of re-examine those relationships during COVID? I mean, not to say like re-examine any relationships.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And what's that been like? Have you had to part ways with any relationships?
I've had to take a sacred pause.
Oh.
And yeah, and allow for whatever to be will be. But Joseph, I have been generous to a fault. And it's because of the family, I grew up in, the things I saw. And when I say that, I don't blame my parents. I love them, and they did the best they knew how to do, given all that they had. And my parents they didn't have much. So, you learned how to be certain ways based off of what you see, based off your conditioning. And I've had to work through those patterns so that I can enrich my relationships.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
I find that I've re-examined so many relationships during this time. And there was something, I was in that point. Yeah, I think I've been in a point where I'm in constant questioning of everything, right? And that's I think that's the beauty of education, right? I think that your curiosity in an ideal situation, that you are encouraged to be curious and you're encouraged to question every damn thing, right? And at some points, not gonna lie, it feels like a state of psychosis, because
Yes.
I'm like, wait, hold on, one second, I'm done questioning. It's 2 a.m. I don't want to question anymore. I don't have any more questions. I'm done. We'll pick this back up tomorrow. But I've recognized the importance of humor and joy and laughter and energy. I think that's one of the things that for sure people must pick up about you. The energy that you bring into the room. And I'm still like, I know the speaking of our families and our kind of how their imprint on our lives, their major imprint on our lives. I never want to fall into the category of being old. That is youth is something that I've always loved, right? Not in a weird way, but in the best.
And you say that like you're 80 years old.
Not in a weird way.
Oh my goodness.
I know I said I like kids a couple of times here, and I just want to be very clear. Like, okay, I know I've been saying I like kids, okay, but what I'm saying,
no.
I appreciate. No. I know the world we're living in is, there's some people out there, but that's I love that energy, and I always want to have that. Like, I've recognized that in the people that I surround myself with. And I think it goes back. It speaks back to that curiosity, right? And I think when you stop being curious, like, that's when things start to slow down. That's when you stop. I think that's when you stop having fun.
Yeah.
Just kind of, life is a routine. You're not growing. You're not being. You could call it your best self, or however you want to phrase it. But I just started to notice folks that were like totally getting old. Like, I'm set in my ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I go to work and then I go home and not really that happy, but this is what life is like.
Okay, I have to say this because I said this also today. It's like I was being prepared for this conversation. Everybody wants to figure out what they can do. If they're white, they want to know what they can do to support Black Lives Matter or Indigenous Lives Matter, whatever it is. Black people, what can we do to support one another? I say start at your personal level of life enjoyment.
Yeah.
If you are not happy with yourself, you cannot be happy for anybody else. If you are not happy with your own life, you cannot celebrate someone else in their progress.
Sure.
So, and that is another expression, that's another vehicle for internalized oppression,
Yep.
another, perpetuation point. So people have to work on their mental health, their physical health, do something that reminds you that you're alive,
Yeah.
because whether you are always talking about anti or you're talking about your values, at some point you got to take a break and just get into your body and remember I'm alive.
Yeah.
And then come back with some laughter, come back with some curiosity, come back with some humor,
Sure.
because that's what we need to give one another, not this other stuff.
Desperately, we need humor and
And kindness.
Yeah, I mean, golly, the world, the apocalypse might be upon us. Let's go out.
Right.
I mean, golly, I looked outside and there was, the smoke was everywhere from the fires. Businesses, I'm, walking down the street, businesses are closed. I probably looked at a bad, not bad, but I looked at a an emotional kind of post, or I saw something on the news and my thinking about everything in the world. I was like, oh my god, what's happening, what is going on right now? And so that's why I say, I mean, our communities are so powerful, and our relationships, whether that be with your friends or your therapist or a teacher or whoever, they're just so important to your success, to our success.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things about being an adult, I see, we get so fixated on success and what success means. I mean, that should be another part. I mean, I'm sure that you do this, but you have to part of looking within and understanding you is, what does that mean to you? What does success mean? Like, are you still basing it off of your neighbor? Are you basing it off of what you've been told? Are you basing it off of what you see? Because that part I would say I'm a little scared of. I mean, I'm definitely not scared, like I'm uneasy, and there's just so many, golly, there's so many ideas out there. There's so much propaganda about what you should be doing with your life and the measure of happiness and success, and how to do it. And it's exhausting, and it's easy to get caught up in it. It's so easy. I mean, I've been there before, been there many times before. Like, oh, I'm not doing what I should be doing. Oh, that's success. Oh, and that's when you start getting jealous and you're like, well, I'm not doing that. Well, why am I not doing that? Well, I don't like that person because they're not doing, they're doing it and I'm not. Go down that road. But yeah, we're oh, this is what I want to ask you. This is perfect. This is what I want to ask you. I tried to stay away from it as much as I possibly could because I didn't know how to discuss it. And I think I only discussed it briefly on like a last episode, but I think that you are, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think you're the only woman I've interviewed thus far, had on the podcast.
Woohoo! I'm the first
Well, I was going to say,
woman
well,
uh,
let me
of
finish.
this week. Okay, no, never mind.
In a couple of weeks. But I was like, oh, nope, I can't lie to you. Huh?
It's okay.
But there is a very, very popular video out right now with the song called WAP. Are you familiar?
No.
Oh, you're not. Oh, damn it. Damn it, Ashley.
But what's it about?
I'm
Is
gonna
it the walk like this or something else?
no, not particularly. I'm gonna have this is what we're gonna do. I'm going to we're gonna this is gonna be a great opportunity for us to come back and do another podcast
Okay.
because you need to watch this video and then we can discuss it because we could discuss. I think there's some parts to it we could actually break down that video and have a lengthy conversation about messaging and expectations and ideals. And I specifically wanted to ask you because it's by two female artists. I believe it's Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion.
Oh.
And it is artistic for sure. And there's some, it is a fascinating video. And I wanted your perspective because, my expectation is that you speak on behalf of every Black woman on earth. Okay. I just want to
No,
make
I'll disappoint you.
But there is I really wanted to get uh, your understanding about expectations specifically set on women of color, specifically Black women, because yeah, I don't think I really, I I don't really know if I was ever in a place to truly understand the vulnerable positions that women of color and Black women are in. Once I started to like do more research and have more discussion around intersectionality, and yeah, just think about again doing the work and seeing what kind of person I am. And how that's affected other people, right? Yeah, I've had a newfound understanding, and I think we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge it. Maybe we should acknowledge that more and less on the anti.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely yeah, and I've had so many uh we'll say women support me in in my aspirations, um specifically within the last 4 years, and obviously throughout my entire life. But as I reflect back on this time entering into school, I've had so many supportive, educated, um, intellectual um, women of color, Black women, all women actually. You know what I mean? But specifically, um, yeah, I don't know, and I don't want to use the word educated as like a measure of someone's worth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is one of the flaws that I see in education is that we use it as a way of separation, right? Folks, oh, I've got a master's, I got a PhD. Okay, well, what are you doing with it? Who are you? Who are you bringing into the fold? Who are you reaching out and like touching with that education?
Right.
What good is it if you hold on to it, right? If you're hoarding all the information, like, well, we're supposed to be getting more people in this.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should be in this party. This is the greatest. It's the greatest party you could possibly get in. Come on. But I say that. Yeah, I'm just feeling those same feelings of gratitude that you had at the beginning, right? Like I really do. Um, I do not understand, but I can acknowledge uh, the this kind of maybe the untold story, and maybe the story's been told, but it hasn't been a mainstream conversation, right? And yeah, I'll ramble on, so I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it there. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I did that because I was feeling it, and I felt like I needed to like let it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyhow, so Rise and Thrive. What? Where do you see this going in the next 5 years?
I see it becoming, I'm going to, my wildest dream, being able to pay the people I love and respect to contribute under this organization 6 figures. Being able to support community by creating spaces that help people to build their skills to be more interdependent. Right now, we have different categories of people, and the terms differ. You know, you have codependent, independent, and then there's interdependent. I'm just going to create these three simplicities. And I want to support us with moving from that codependency. And even with that, there's a scale or a spectrum, and then into interdependence to where we so value our relationships with one another, even if we're not close, we still value respecting our proximity to one another.
Yeah.
And Rise and Thrive will be a leader for among humanity, Black people leading the way in liberation in highly skilled, highly caring ways. And non-Black people can join, and they join with the expectation that we're learning with
Sure.
and from, but this is not for you to come in and turn it into something that, no, not as long as I'm living.
Yeah.
So the expectation is to support highly skilled, highly caring people across industries. And when we talk about supporting a robust, diverse, equitable, inclusive community, we have to support Black people supporting Black people.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
You don't talk to me about Black Lives Mattering and you're threatened by Black excellence.
Sure.
So Rise and Thrive will be a proponent of supporting robust diversity in the sense of protecting and maintaining the rights and dignities of Black people, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, and financially. So that's the goal. We'll see what happens.
Well, you know, I think you might be the third or fourth Howard alum that I've
Yeah.
and y'all are some good people. Okay, I'm going to generalize. I'm going to generalize because it's a positive generalization.
That's funny.
And you know, I've had quite a few folks on that are from the HBCU community, and I sometimes it's hard to put into words the experience that we have on HBCU campus, and I think it's been perfect to have folks on because it's been the easiest way to show how special it is, how unique it is, right? And yeah, yeah, it's really gratifying, man. I can't believe it. Like, I'm actually getting like kind of emotional talking about it, but it's been really cool um to just have that community through this podcast. And not to say that I haven't had a great time with folks that did it, but there's so much conversation. I think what clicked for me was when you were talking about this community, right, and specifically around Black folks. I always go back to my time spent at Norfolk State and just being in that space of intellectuals and the diversity within the Black community that we're we're hoping that other people get a chance to see,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It's like everybody's not the same, right? And at the same time, anyone watching this that is Black, that doesn't feel encouraged to be themselves, right? Don't let you being Black um, hinder you from exploring whatever it is that you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, just I wanted to make sure I gave you Howard folks some credit. I
Yeah, Howard taught me how to walk before I knew I had wings.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
So I'm gonna ask you one last question because I thought about it today. How I kind of want to start ending podcasts. I mean, it's kind of weird to. I'm sure you're going through this, and when I asked you, where do you see Rise and Thrive in 5 years, and even before that, earlier in the conversation, you were mentioning, you're like, yeah, like, I'm figuring things out as they go, and same, right? I don't, I started the podcast because I was like, well, I just want to get people's narratives. Like, I need, this is what we're missing. We're missing like the exposure, and this is fun. I love doing this. Like, I love,
Yeah, it is fun.
it's fun. Um, but my idea was to start ending the show on asking people something that they love.
You must, okay, because I was on a walk on Sunday. I'm talking to Spirit. Spirit says, "What do you love?"
No,
Spirit was preparing me for this conversation.
absolutely.
So to be asked that today, I'm just like, whoa, what do I love? Well, I told you already, number one, being in the presence of God has Joseph, when I think about where I came from, I think about my lineage,
Mm-hmm.
where I could have been, who I could have been, and coming into contact with grace, mercy, and truth in a way that helps me to decide who I want to be.
Mm.
That is such a blessing.
Oh.
So I love being in the presence of God. I love being with people I love. I love to laugh loud, roller skate backwards, try not to fall. I love to eat with my family. I love, interesting flavored ice creams, hiking. Um, I love to embrace people and let them know you were here and I saw you. I felt you. I love children and youth. I love, I'm not as connected to my Garifuna culture, but I love to see Garifuna people dancing and speaking Garifuna and, the food um, and then I love having time to be quiet. I love to read, but it's just amazing how you asked me this question because it just reminds me how I just love to watch life unfold, to relax
Yeah.
into grace and just that connection. I remember talking to someone and they said, when you blink, that's God.
Mm.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to know God that way. And ever since then, that prayer, that statement became, my song. So that's what I love, to get me started. I could go on and on, but
saw that and I was like, okay.
And if people who are watching want to follow me on Instagram, it's Ashley and Blanco _. You can also follow Rise and Thrive at rise.and.thrive.llc. And you can go to risewhereyouare.com and download the Rise and Thrive Where You Are blueprint. And there's some other things going on there. And then if you just want to learn more about me as a person, ashleyandblanco.com.
There you go. I'll make sure to put all of that info when I put the podcast up.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. We'll do this again. I really do want to do this again because I want you to watch. I want you to watch this video, and I want to also talk about some other stuff, and possibly have you and my friend G.L.O.W, who just recently was commissioned to be a chaplain in the U.S. Navy. Yeah, just picking up the energy from you in our conversation and bringing him in too. I think we could, I think we could have a good time.
All right.
Yeah. But thank you so much, and we'll do it again.
Thank you.